Mm. Yeah.
It is.
What's the no tables?
No tape. We just gave tables out. Can't move the chairs.
Huh?
Can you put tables out? You just can't move the chairs.
I'm just saying, why can't we just pull this back to the table?
Ask Janine. I'm going
Is
to
Janine-
do whatever you want.
Is Janine the culprit?
Well, I just, I mean, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I'm just abiding by the rules.
But who, I'm just asking whose rules.
They don't want to. I guess you can move the row back.
I'm asking who's they? The board?
Debbie's on.
Janine said she don't want the chairs taken.
If we just move it back like this as a row, we put them back wherever we go. I just want to show in the front row. I'm scared for Danny. Got real grip in front, but I don't think we want zoo, I think.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, are we friends now? That's
We are.
hot. Yeah.
I was hoping that was you and not. I was hoping that was you.
Yeah.
Well,
You
because
never
here's what happens. So I get, and I'm sure this happens to everybody, not just me, but you get a friend request on Facebook and you see, okay, well, we've got 20 mutual friends and they're all recovery people, so you're probably okay to add. So I'm gonna add you. And then you start messaging me, just random WID. What are you doing?
Oh, I didn't
You
do
know?
that.
No,
Oh, but yeah.
no,
Oh,
not you,
okay.
not you.
Right.
I don't mean you.
Yeah.
But that's what happens.
Yeah. You popped up and I go, oh, I know her.
What are you doing, man?
We're moving now.
Yep.
So
Oh,
you don't Yeah.
want to be on
I always started out in the back of the class.
Here, I'm going to sit on the front row there. And Shannon's coming. I'll just save a spot.
I'd always start out in the back of the class every year. And
Mhm.
within a week, I was in the front row, right in front of the teacher. Like, you
Was that-
will sit down and be quiet.
I was gonna say, was that voluntary or no?
No, that was never voluntary. Well, we can sit here if you want. I'm just. We can sit up here. You want to sit with us? Really?
I got to save 2 seats.
Oh, you got 3 of you? You sit here. He can have that one. I'll get it out. I'll get it out.
Yes, I gotta say.
I'll get one right.
How are you doing?
Fine, how you doing?
How, you on vacation from your man?
Yeah. I had a vacation from the hospital. But it really was not a vacation,
Right. Oh, shit. I didn't do the air. Let me do that.
because I
I
worked.
keep forgetting.
We just sit up here.
Oh, you said you wanted to say.
Oh, I need to make it down to 7.
I don't care. I just want to say the since the jury was me.
If we all 4 sit at that one.
And then stuff, you move that table down. There. Yep, so isn't that right there?
You personally, this answers my questions. You can return
The
some-
table's back.
Okay, so in front then. Put it back up there. Fine. I don't really care.
Okay.
In fact, I probably listen better if I'm in the front row.
Well, choose computer.
Okay. Doug, I missed you.
I miss Peter, brother.
You got it.
I will tell you.
Call me after it's over. I'd like to know what your impression is.
Relax.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I went to
It
one
really
meeting. Monday night I went to a meeting. There was 5 of us there and 2 of us were there for the very first time.
Yeah.
I went to another meeting. It was kind of like going to CRC.
Well, I'm headed that direction.
Like lesbians do a
All
lot.
right.
Oh,
And they never heard the 5 suggestions. They didn't talk back during chip ceremony or how it works.
really?
I was like, you guys need to be with this.
That's right.
Okay, are y'all sitting on the front row or the second?
Yeah, we're gonna sit on the front. row.
Okay, then I'll get on the second.
You got the whole second row, you and your two comrades.
Oh. I've had a day.
I gotta tell you, talk about life on life's terms.
Yeah.
Hold your breath and watch for God. He will absolutely show us.
Yeah. Every time.
His dad.
Today you're on the front row.
We need you to pay attention.
Doug was pulling all these chairs apart. And I said, don't do that. She will get you.
I have a heart attack.
How are you?
Hey, Shorty, what's up?
He wasn't pulling them
Who are you
apart.
talking
You?
He wasn't pulling them
Yeah,
apart. He
you.
was just wondering why we.
Pretty good, how you doing?
I said, she needs that.
to? How's the house?
Hey, Danny,
How's the house?
how many copies of each?
Thank you.
I said, how's the house?
You just, whatever you want.
It's there, I got a key.
Everybody here? Okay.
It's there, I got a key, I mean,
Oh, you haven't moved in yet?
Okay.
I just signed up.
Are you
for
tired
it.
today?
Yeah, so I'm moving in Saturday.
What's the holdup, man?
I don't know, well, it's quiet in the neighborhood, the lady.
That too. Which doesn't really work. Hey, when do you move, man?
Pardon me?
No.
Saturday.
No shit.
So I,
Oh, I referred to
We did
him
the
as
deal.
my
and the guy leaves me the phone. He gives me his phone, and this guy goes to the house to give me the phone. I get talking to him after we signed all this stuff. I'm the third owner. The original owner lived in like 50
Ooh,
years,
resentment.
new.
Nice.
And
From sheet.
the lady goes,
Oh, that-
one
oh,
thing
yeah.
about me, walks in the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
there's resentment list there.
She said, "Wow, neighborhood must be really decent." So they gonna be real happy. It's gonna be different.
Ding dong.
Layout, central heat there, all that stuff.
I'll have her sit in here.
1957.
I gotta say one chair for
Yeah, so
Shannon.
Sit right here.
I'm stoked.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, you know, brother, you know what I mean?
Not.
No, I got equity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my brother died. I don't know how great. And but I had to say,
Hi, guys. Hi, Dan, Greg.
Danny.
yeah, it's cool as
Hey,
hell.
Danny.
Who's that there?
It's God plus recovery is what how
Hey,
I
Danny.
Hi, honey. How are you?
How was it?
I'm really good.
Good.
Excellent.
I was the bear.
All right.
Just stop poking the bear. Okay?
Hey, I'm just happy for you. Wow. Did you guys?
Oh, oh goodness.
now I'm under 190.
No.
I'm up to 190.
Hell yeah, that's been around 195, 200 forever. Thank God. What'd you do then? Haven't gone.
You'll drop.
That'll take a few pounds off.
Best advice,
Not a diet I would recommend, but
best advice I ever got when I first colonoscopy. I went to the pharmacy. And I asked the pharmacist, I said, okay, I've never done this. What do I expect? I said, is it going to hurt like I'm sick? He goes, no, no, no. He goes, there's no pain whatsoever. The advice, he goes, I got two pieces of advice for you. Okay? Don't wander far from a bathroom.
Yeah.
No, it's not a fart.
yeah.
He was right. On both counts.
That's what I did.
What you do the real deal?
That is the real deal.
Man, I used to do it the old fashioned way. Drink that.
Oh, well, I've said about that.
Man, it knocked me out.
What doctor?
I tell you what, man, I can understand why Michael
Dr.
Jackson don't eat on propofol. That's the coolest drug.
What's that?
They give you a little propofol and you just kind of go out. And the next thing I know, I woke up, I was in recovery. It was over.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
the-
sitting in a chair.
Dreamy.
They gave me that for my knee surgery.
Yeah.
That's how minor it was. My knee surgery. They're like, here.
How the hell that happened?
Yeah, I know that. The whole reason you got recovery is because of, what was that? Bobby Jackson. I'll take on things on help you, Jerry, so that'd be a good sign.
Benny back at donuts.
Hey,
Benny
y'all
Bang
see
it
that
down.
the inductees are to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year?
Am I on the list?
Tina Turner, this is the son. She was with the Mike. Yeah, they got it at 9. Carol King. I can't believe it's taking all this time.
Oh, she wrote so many songs. Yeah, she should have been in 20 years ago.
Go-Go's, Jay-Z, Foo Fighters, Todd Rundgren.
Jay-Z
Jay-Z.
in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Billy Preston.
They're kind of running out, you know, they don't actually play now.
You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Scott, what's up, pal? How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, I'm myself.
All right.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Robin.
What's up?
Good to see you.
This might be the last one. I got a job with the police and I'm probably gonna be
Oh, yeah?
working late and they're pretty quick. I don't have a lot of time off during the summer.
Oh man, a full hall from me by the time you play. When you get home, I drove over there and I couldn't get Hurry up. I know. Gerald, I like the color coordination with the hat and shirt. Thanks, man. You're doing good last night too. Never lost a word. That's not true.
Oh, you haven't checked
No,
Yeah. He moved up here on Monday.
and
Yeah. Yeah. I went.
You ready?
There's old Barry.
Ah, slacker.
Anyway, long story short, we flew him back to here Monday. And so, today, and signed one. Oh, yes.
You missed.
All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started.
Did you say something bad last week?
Well, no, you haven't been here, so I figured if you ain't coming, I ain't coming. That's the attitude. Well, Shannon's here. That's all that counts. All right.
We've
Thank you.
been waiting. We had donuts and ate them all, so.
All right. So last week we just started. I hope you guys were able to catch up on computer what you missed the last few weeks. Because if you didn't catch up, some stuff's not going to make sense to you. So good. If you didn't catch up, spend some time catching up this week on those ones you missed. All right. So we talked last week, we started on the fourth step and we talked about the business inventory. All right, did that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Okay. And so a couple of things, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but in this inventory process, we're only looking for the negative stuff. We're not going to inventory any good qualities about ourselves. There's no sense to that. You know, about the only good quality I had when I got here was I was always kind and considerate to elderly people. I was brought up that way. So that was like my only good quality. And going through this process, coming out the other side, whatever good qualities you have, you're not going to lose them. So the book specifically talks about flaws and wrongs and that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to inventory, okay? And that's what we're going to look at. When we get to the 10th step, it's the first time that they're going to ask us to look at our assets along with our liabilities, okay? So that happens in the 10th step, doesn't happen in the 4th step. Some people tell you to write your life story. I don't know where they get that from. Some people tell you to write the good and the bad. I don't know where they get that from because the directions are pretty clear here. So, and another thing, I don't know if we talked about, but in the 4th step, Bill uses the word faults. And in the 5th step, he uses the word wrongs. In the 6th step, he uses the word defects. In the 7th step, he uses the word shortcomings. And somebody asked him one time, what's the difference between those things? And he said, absolutely nothing. I just didn't want to use the same words. So what we're looking for, what we're going to do here in the 4th step is we're going to try to find out what the exact nature of our wrongs are. That's the idea and the intent of this step. Find out what is the exact nature of our wrongs. That's why I put this reading up here today. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. And if you can see, that was quoted from a long time ago. All right. Okay, so we're on page 64. Now, interestingly, when we did the 3rd step, we talked about our will and our lives, our thoughts and our actions in 3 dimensions. Do you remember that? Past, present, and future? Okay. Well, we're going to inventory 4 things in the 4th step. And 3 of those things cover that. We're going to inventory resentments. That's about the past. We're going to inventory fears. That's about the present. We're going to inventory our sexual conduct. That's about the future. For a safe and sound sex life in the future. Okay. But let's just look at, on page 64, the last paragraph, it says resentment is the #1 offender. So I just want to go over what we actually going to inventory and where the book says to inventory it, right? So if you skip down a little in the middle of that paragraph somewhere, it says, in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. You see that? So that's the first thing it's telling us to write down is resentments. And it's specifically telling us to write that down. And then if you go to page 68, the first paragraph says, we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper. So it's telling us to write down our fears. On page 69, ironically, the end of the first paragraph says, we got this all down on paper and looked at it. So it's
Where is 69?
69, first paragraph, the end, the last sentence in the first paragraph. We reviewed our conduct, that's the paragraph. We got this all down on paper and looked at it, okay? And then on the bottom of page 70, it says, we have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct. So harms to others. The bottom of page 70, almost like 3 sentences up from the bottom. We have listed the people. So the book is specifically telling us to write down resentments, our fears, our sexual conduct, and the harms we've done other people.
And the harms are, you said past, present, future, the harms are.
The harms are all of it. Really. So those are the 4 things we're going to inventory. Again, there's nowhere in here that's going to tell us to inventory your good qualities. There's no need for that. All right. So on page 64, it says, therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory, and that really could be referring to the 10th step, because we're going to do regular inventories in the 10th step, right? And then he talks about the business inventory. We did that last week, and we put up the 4th step that goes with that, and it works itself out perfectly. So down in the next paragraph, he says, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what has defeated us. So what are the various ways that self manifests? For us, what we're going to look at is resentment, fear, sex, and harms to others. That's how self manifests. And again, on the top of this page, the last sentence before the first paragraph, it says, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. You see that? So from this point forward, anytime I say causes and conditions, or the book says the various ways self has manifested, it's the same thing. Causes and conditions and the manifestation of self is the same thing. There's nothing different about them. Okay. And that's all about our resentments, our fears, our sexual conduct, our harms to others. And he says, resentment is the number 1 offender. What I want to do before we get into this is I want to talk about what the 3 basic instincts of life. Is anybody, if you're not familiar with the 3 basic instincts, raise your hand. That's it? Just a few of you? The rest of you all know? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Very important. Very, very important. Because every problem you've ever had in your life, ever, and any problem you're having now, and any problem you're ever going to have, is directly related to the 1, 2, or all 3 of the basic instincts of life. And all 3 basic instincts of life are God-given. Therefore, they're good and they're natural. Unfortunately, people like us take them out to left field, way out of perspective. And in the 12 and 12, if you get a chance, we're not going to read it today, but in the 12 and 12, he expands on the basic instincts of life. But we're going to talk about them here because they're very important before we get into it. What's that? You got a question? Somebody in Cyberland got a question? Mute yourself there. All right. So in no particular order, the first basic instinct in life is the social instinct. You might want to write all this down. It's very important. The social instinct is God-given. Therefore, it's good and it's natural. And what is the social instinct? Everybody is born with the desire to be liked and respected. If we didn't have that desire, we would not care about anybody else or anything that we do, and we'd wind up probably killing each other off. So we all have this desire to be liked and respected. Okay? Problem with people like us is we take that way out of perspective. And you're not liking me or respecting me as fast as I think you should, or the way I think you should. And so what happens then is I'm going to do things to make you like me and respect me. What am I going to do? I'm just going to act out. I think I shared with you last week about being in school when I was a little kid. I was the guy that did all the crazy stuff. So people say, oh, Danny's crazy, you know. That was just the way I was. I jumped out the window on the substitute teacher. She didn't know that there was an awning underneath the window. She screamed. Everybody was laughing because everybody knew there was an awning there. I only jumped about 3 feet. But, you know, everybody, I was 5th grade. I mean, oh, that Danny's crazy, right? So I'm going to make you like me and respect me. And in order, the only way I can do that is to take a shortcut. I can't go through life normally because you're not liking me and respecting me quick enough for the way I think. So when I take a shortcut, there's no way to take a shortcut without stepping on other people's toes. And the book says that when we step on other people's toes, they retaliate and cause pain and suffering in our life. And the first thought I get is, how could you do that to me after all I've done for you? Right? That's usually my first thought. I can't believe you did that to me after all I've done for you. Probably did nothing for you but cause you pain and suffering for many years, right? But I still think that, right? So that's what happens when I'm going to try to make this social instinct work for me. And when we inventory the sheets I'm going to give you next week, I'm going to give you sheets. There's 3 columns. The third column is the 3 basic instincts, and each column has 2 things. Has 2 columns in it, and here's a big copy of it so you can see what you're going to get from us. And you might have seen these sheets before. They're not this big. They're regular size. I do this, but you might have seen these before. We made these up, me and John Legassi. We made these up probably, I want to say 27, 28 years ago. And we probably took 5 hours to make these sheets up. We argued and talked about everything, including how much space should be in between the lines. All right, because we're not writing, anytime we're going to do any writing in AA, we want to do shopping list writing. In other words, if you go to the store, the supermarket, right, and you got a list, you write coffee, eggs, milk. You don't write on your list, I need coffee because in the morning I like to have a cup of coffee. Eggs because I like a couple eggs in the morning. You don't do that, right? Well, you're not going to do that here in your inventory process. And you can see the example that's in the big book. When we get to it, we'll go over it. It's quick. Okay, it's just shopping list kind of inventories. That's what we're going to do, whatever we're writing in here, whether it's any step that we're writing on. We're just going to do shopping list writing. Okay, so if you don't have enough room, you're running the wrong thinking. Okay, there's enough room on the sheets that I give you. So the social instinct is very important. The social instinct you're going to see is the 2 columns that are broken down in the social instinct is self-esteem and personal relations. You don't have to write that down because you'll have the sheets that you can. Willie's going to make copies for everybody. Do not write on the copies he gives you because you're going to need more than 1 sheet in resentments and you're going to want to have some to pass on to people that you're working with. So make copies before you start writing on them. All right. See, I don't know about you guys, but I can't get, all my life, I couldn't get enough power, couldn't get enough love, couldn't get enough attention, couldn't get enough money, couldn't get enough dope, couldn't get enough booze, couldn't get enough sex, right? You could cross out the word, enough and put the word more in there. I need more, more, more. I was a more junkie, right? I needed more of everything, right? Because I can't get these things. And that's all got to do with your social instincts. So again, any problem you've ever had in your life is directly related to the 3 basic instincts of life. Okay? So what we're going to do in this 4th step is going to recognize the things that block us off from the sunlight of the Spirit. And so we can have an open channel to the God that we understand. All right. So all of our wrongs are directly related to the 3 basic instincts of life. Okay. The next basic instinct, again, is not in any particular, is the security instinct. Now, we're all born with the desire to be secure in life. We have shelter from the weather. We wear clothes so the elements don't get us. We eat food so we don't starve, right? God gave us this basic instinct, this security instinct, so we would not become extinct. So God-given, therefore good and natural. Again, we take it way out of perspective. Way out of perspective. I got a house, but you got a nicer house. I got shoes. I see these shoes. I need those shoes. So maybe some of you women can relate to that one. I'm a shoe guy too, though. But but you understand? So we take it out of perspective because now we start wanting things and needing things and thinking we things we should have that have nothing to do with the God-given security instinct. It's all about selfishness and self-centeredness. And again, so all of these things I do, I have to need more money. And the only way I can get that, because life is not giving it to me the way I need to get it. So I start taking shortcuts. And when I take shortcuts, there's no way to take shortcuts in life without stepping on other people's toes. And the book tells us when we step on other people's toes, they retaliate, cause pain and suffering in our life. And probably, I don't know about you, but my first thought is, how could you do that to me after all I've done for you? That was one of my favorite things that I think to myself. Right? And again, I probably did not because you're paying a hardship, but that's what I think. So that's the security instinct. Okay. But the God-given security is I just need to be secure, and so I don't die from the elements, and I don't starve to death. And that's the God-given security instinct. It's not about having more of this or getting more of that, or possession of these things. And in your inventory sheet, there's 2 columns for the security instinct, and it's material and emotional. Material security and emotional security. That emotional security is deep, deep. I promise you something. When you go through the 4th step this way with these sheets and we go over it, I guarantee you're going to be able to pinpoint for the first time in your life the exact nature of your wrongs. You're going to be able to pinpoint exactly where your anger comes from, where your fear comes from, where your sexual deviation comes from, and why you hurt other people. Guarantee you that. I don't know if you've done a 4th step and were able to see that before. You might have saw some type of a pattern in your life, but now you're going to, without a doubt, you're going to be able to pinpoint all of this stuff. Okay, so that's the security instinct. Yes. Social instinct, security instinct. And the third basic instinct of life is the sexual instinct. And again, God gave us that, so therefore it's good and natural. And why did God give us that? So we would reproduce and we would not become extinct. All of the basic instincts of life God gave us so we would not become extinct and we would survive and grow and prosper. I don't know if he was planning on dealing with a bunch of alcoholics and addicts because we take shit way out of perspective, don't we? So the sexual instinct is, you can see how that gets us in trouble. One of the things God did, which is kind of ironic, is he made sex enjoyable. And the reason he made sex enjoyable is so we would have sex and reproduce, right? If he didn't make it enjoyable, then we'd have to, we'd work all day, we'd come home and, oh God, I got to have sex tonight. Jeez, but, yeah. Oh, by the way, before I forget, we got to get some flyers made up. We're going to do June 27th here. We're going to do a relationship workshop, 2 hours. It's on a Sunday from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
2 to 4.
I'll get those made.
And it's actually called, the workshop is actually called Relation Slips.
Slips?
Yeah, slips.
Oh my God.
A ship will take you somewhere and a slip will knock you down. And so very helpful because people like us, we have problems with relationships. So bring all your sponsees and bring everybody you can. We'll have some fun and we'll learn some things.
Danny,
Yes.
is that going to be Zoom?
Yes, we're going to Zoom that. Are you coming, Deb?
Sure.
Okay. It's official. We're gonna Zoom it and it'll be on YouTube the next day.
What do I tell
All
them?
right, send us a link.
Bring her.
Yeah.
June
What time on
27th.
Sunday?
Sunday, June 27th from,
Do it on Zoom,
yeah,
on this same. Zoom
yeah,
number.
from 2 to 4, which is, don't forget, we're on Central Time. A lot of you guys are on East Coast time.
1 to 4. Okay.
Yeah. It'd be,
Send us a link.
1 to 3. I
1 to
mean,
3 for you, yeah. Okay. Yes, right here. Right
Right
here,
in this room.
right here, just like this.
I don't need that.
It's not what I heard. All right. So what happens with the sexual instinct is inevitably I find myself with the wrong person or persons at the wrong time for the wrong reason. And it's not the God-given instinct that was bestowed upon me. It's my selfishness and self-centeredness. And I wind up, I gotta have her, I gotta have her, I gotta have her. And I wind up again with the wrong person at the wrong time, or wrong persons at the wrong time. And there's no way that can do that without stepping on other people's toes. And the book says when we step on other people's toes, they retaliate, cause pain and suffering in our life. And probably your first thought is, how could you do that to me after all I've done for you? So those are the 3 basic instincts in life. On your inventory sheet, the 2 columns for your sexual inventory, sexual instinct is acceptable sex relations and hidden sex relations. And we're going to break all this down so you'll understand. But just real quick, let's say you're married and you have an affair. And if you're having if it's on resentment or if it's on fear, whatever sheet you're working on, if it's about your spouse, it's an acceptable sex relation, even though the resentment is about she caught you and it's an acceptable sex relation because it's the resentment is with your spouse. If the same reasoning and the same scenario, and now you're doing it with the one you were having an affair with, it's hidden sex relation. So if it's not your spouse, if it's anything, a house, a mouse, or a louse, if it's anything but your spouse, it's the hidden sex relation.
Not anymore, I got caught.
Yeah. And we'll go over that more when we get into it. Okay. So those are your 3 basic instincts of life. Again, they're so powerful because I can't say it enough times. Every problem you've ever had in life is directly related to 1, 2, or 3 of those basic instincts. And every problem you're ever going to have in life is related to those. So understand them. We'll get to understand them in this inventory process. We'll get to look at all of that stuff, and we'll get to learn some things about ourselves. All right. So anybody got any questions on that? No questions?
2 parts of the sexual instinct are acceptable.
Yes, acceptable sex relations and hidden sex relations. You'll have that on your sheet when you get your sheets next week. But and again, the acceptable is when it's your partner, and hidden is anybody but your partner. Okay, especially animals.
You are in Oklahoma.
All right. So now the first thing we wanted, the book talks about that we're going to inventory. I'm back on page 64. We did a lot of stuff in the third step about self-will. And self-will can't fix self-will. Sick thinking can't fix sick thinking. So we have to do some work here to understand the exact nature of our wrongs. And the first thing he says is, let me back up a minute. I tell you on the top of this page, it says causes and conditions. And then in the middle of this page, it talks about the various ways self is manifested. On page 62, it tells us, the first paragraph tells us selfishness, self-centeredness. that we think is the root of our troubles. And it even goes on to tell us that driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. That's what we just talked about, right? But selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of the trouble. So the cause of our problems is right there. That is the cause of our problem. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the cause of our problems. The condition of that cause is what we're going to inventory. Resentment, fear, sexual conduct, harms to others. So the condition of the cause is the things that we're inventory. The way self has manifested is the condition of the cause of selfishness and self-centeredness. Does that make sense? I'm not sure what I said. The condition of our cause is resentment, fear, sexual conduct, harms to others. And it's the same thing if I say the way self has manifested is the condition of the cause. And the condition of the cause, the way self is manifested, is resentment, fear, sexual conduct, and harms to others. So they're one and the same. Causes and conditions and the various ways self is manifested are the same thing. So whatever you read here, either one of them, it means the same thing. Both of them are conditions of the cause, and the cause being selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Okay? And so the first condition of the cause is resentment. Now, there's an interesting thing about resentment. Resentment comes from the root origin of the word resentment comes from two Latin words. R-E, means again. And I don't know how you spell it, but I think Greg might be on here. He knows how to spell it. Centuri is the other Latin word, and that means feel. So really, the root origin of the word resentment means feel again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and 30 years worth of that shit by the time we crawl into these rooms. I shared with you once before, I think a few weeks ago, that something may have happened to you once upon a time when you were young and you were truly a victim of what happened. But the last 20 years, it hasn't happened to you. You haven't been a victim for the last 20 years. You've been a volunteer to the pain through resentment. You've felt it over and over and over again. For instance, a lot of people have molestation problems when they get here. Not to minimize or discount that. That's very serious stuff. If you were a little kid and that happened to you, not your fault, horrible thing. But if it happened to you for a year or two, or once or twice when you were small, and now you come in these rooms, you're 30 years old and it hasn't happened to you in 20 years, but you've been suffering from that. Your life has been messed up because of that. You have to understand, you have to at some point own to the fact that you're not a victim anymore. You're a volunteer to the pain of what somebody did to you through your resentments.
Bad stuff.
Yeah, that's what the business inventory was. Damaged or unsellable goods. It's our flawed thinking, remember? Okay. So again, I'm not trying to discount or minimize something horrific that happened to you. But if it's not happening today, you're not a victim. And as long as you stay in the victim mentality, you can't move on. You need to heal. You need to do some things and heal what happened to you once upon a time. And this is the beginning of that process, is to take a look at it this way. Okay. And the book says that. You know what? Let's go to what the book says for a minute. Go to page 66. 66. This is really interesting because I've heard people talk about this for years and years in rooms, and they never get it right. The next to last paragraph on page 66 says, "We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future." we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. Very interesting.
Yeah.
We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. So I ask people, what's the different angle? And people tell me, oh, we're going to look at our part. No, it already says that elsewhere in here. We're gonna take a look at what we did. No, it says that in here. This is specifically telling you that we're going to look at it from an entirely different angle. And this is the entirely different angle. It doesn't matter who did what to you and what it affected in you, or it doesn't even matter what your part was in it. So column 1, who it was, irrelevant. Column 2, what they did to you, irrelevant. Column 3, what it affected in you, irrelevant. Column 4, your part in it, irrelevant. Column 5, how you acted out, irrelevant. The different angle is this. I got a resentment. The resentment itself becomes the wrong. Because, so it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. I got this resentment. It's eating my lunch and I got to get rid of it. That's the different angle. But everything else you could come up with is already covered in this chapter. Right, wrong, or indifferent, this resentment is killing me and it's got to go. And I always tell people, you know, look at it like this, like this is a good visual. Like I get up in the morning, oh, everything's good and I'm happy. And then I leave my house and I got to run into you, son of a bitch. And there's Jerry. He's always got a smile, and he don't even have to say nothing. I know what he's thinking. See, that's how we are, right? You don't even have to say nothing. I know what you're thinking. I know what that smile's about. So I might as well take Jerry and throw him over my shoulder because he's in my head. And then I'm walking down and I run into Shannon. She's always got something to say, right? I might as well take Shannon and throw her over this shoulder because she's in my head. And then I'm going down the street and then I see Doug, and Doug's got a smart remark always. He's got doing something I don't like or something. I might as well throw Doug on my back too. And here I am trying to walk down the street. I got Jerry, I got Shannon, I got Doug, and I just can't do it. Life is too friggin' heavy. It just don't work. It's too hard. And that's exactly what happens when I carry you around rent-free in my head. And you do something, and all day long, I'm feeling it again. Feeling it again. I'm replaying it over and over again. Every time I replay it, I'm a little more right, you're a little more wrong. And I feel it again. And by the end of the day, I got 5 of you in my head, and that's just too heavy. So the entirely different angle is right, wrong, or indifferent. I evict all you son of a bitches. Out of my head, forgive you, I'm done with it, let's move on. And I could walk again. Life is much lighter and much easier. Go ahead.
How long does it take to get to where you can do that?
You should be there next Tuesday at around 4 o'clock.
No, not kidding, Daniel. I mean, I got a day or two and I still have things happen. I'll be damned a few hours later. I think about it again. It's like it never went away.
I'm going to give you in this step, in this week or next week, or maybe the week after, I'm going to give you some mantras.
Well,
I know the guys that are watching down here, I know they all got my mantras. Charlotte, you like my mantra, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. But I give you some mantras to get in your head.
What's a mantra?
Something that you repeat over and over again.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just, that's no character defect, I guess you'd say.
It's just, you know, you just got to learn to overcome that stuff.
Exactly. Easier said than done. Okay.
And these mantras. So in other words, here's the mantra for you. Resentment comes from a threat to any basic instinct in life. Anything, any fear, any resentment, they all come from a threat to one of my basic instincts. Either something I think I have, something to do with the social instinct, something to do with the security instinct, something to do with the sexual instinct, a threat to any basic instinct I have. is where my resentment and my fear and my sexual conduct. So if I'm mad at something, then resentment comes from a threat to any basic instinct. I can't do anything about other people. Can't do anything about what other people do. But maybe with God's help, I can react differently and not get mad. If I'm not angry, this is all part of the mantra. If I'm not angry, no resentment. No anger, no resentment. No resentment, I'm not cut off from God. You can't touch this.
Gotcha.
You get it?
Yeah.
And the same thing with if it's a fear. Fear comes from a threat to any basic instinct of life. Okay? Can't do anything about other people. Can't do anything about what other people do. But maybe with God's help, I can react differently and not be afraid.
So what's the mantra?
That's the mantra, everything I just said.
I can't remember all that.
Sure you can. If you write it down, and the next time you get angry, you read it to yourself. And I've been saying it for 30 years. I still got to look at it to make sure I got it right. But basically, I just shortcut it all and I go, I know where this is coming from. And I ask God for God's help and I'm out of it. You see, when you are rent-free in my head, you own me.
Yeah.
You outright own me. Because I get that crazy. And what recovery has taught me anything, it's taught me one thing. You ain't smart enough to own me today. You're out, gone, evicted. And that's
Is that where that saying comes from? I don't have to be okay with you for me to be okay.
You don't have to change for me to be okay.
you don't have to change for me to be okay.
Oh,
That's
That's what you think.
an Al-Anon thing. You don't have to change for me to be okay.
I'll never tell me.
Yeah. That's a good one. You don't have to change for me to be okay. Yeah. If you remember, we did something in the third step that was very important. When we went over the 5 parts of step 3, the 4th part of step 3 was the word care. And remember, we talked about getting out of the result business.
Yeah.
If you could get out of the result business,
Yeah.
then you won't get angry. Half the times that you're angry is probably because you got some results figured out that ain't happening your way. And the other part in step 3 is we looked at self-will. Remember, the book says that the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. And so if you've learned how to, what your self-will is all about and stop practicing that stuff, then you're not going to have fear and you're not going to have anger the way you have them now. I'm not saying they won't come. I get angry 20 times a day, easy, maybe more, for about 30 seconds, 15 seconds. Bad anger for me today is a whole minute. I swear that's about a minute, and that's messed up. Yeah, because I have the tools available to me. How spiritual and how healthy do I want to be? It ain't up to you to make me that way. And God is available, but I have to participate. So what do I have to do? I have to realize that any resentment comes from a threat to my basic instincts. And I can't do anything about other people. I can't do anything about what people do. But maybe with God's help, I can react differently and not get mad. If I'm not mad, there's no anger. No anger, no resentment. No resentment, I'm not cut off from God.
Yeah.
That shit works.
It's a lot easier said than done.
Not really.
No?
No. It's a lot easier doing it and then saying it. But if you don't do it, yeah, it's a lot easier said than done. That's the way everything is in life. Right? We already talked about that. The only time you're ever going to see success preceding work is in the dictionary. If you want to be successful, you have to work at it. And so if you want to be successful spiritually, you have to work at it. So that's what it's all about, how good you want to feel. All right, we're back on page 64. Anybody got any questions on what we talked about? So it says resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more lives than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. I'm looking for my other sheet. Page 64, last paragraph. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. And I'm going to tell you right now, what I just read is the biggest mistake or misunderstanding of the big book that I have seen in all my years sober, everywhere in the world that I've been. And I've been all over the world and all over this country doing this deal. And I ask people the same thing all the time. Did you inventory principles? And they go, no. It says we listed people, institutions, or principles. It's not a choice. It's not a choice. Institutions or principles. It says institutions or principles. That means both. It says we listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. Okay. So if you were angry with an institution, you list it. If you're angry with a principle, you list it. Now let's talk about principles, because I'm going to tell you, for me personally, the biggest spiritual growth I got in my fourth step was inventorying principles. And I'll share a little bit that with you, but what is a principle? A principle is a moral, a value, or a belief. You might want to write that down. Principle is a moral, a value, or a belief. Okay? Now I'm going to share one with you that I had when I got here. I believed all my life, and I'm just being honest. I'm not being nasty. I'm not trying to be nasty. I'm just being honest. I believed all my life that the more women that I take to bed, the more of a man I am. Nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever told me, Danny, the more women you bed, the more of a man you're going to be. Nobody ever told me that. But I watched my dad. I watched my uncles. I watched all the mentors, men in my life. They all had wives and they all had girlfriends. In Italian, we say gumadas. I had wives and gumadas. And so I picked that up. So I thought, I'm just one of these oversexed guys I got to have. And what I found out in my inventory process is that I'm not oversexed. I'm undersecure. That's the truth of the matter. That these things were to help me with my ego and my pride and all that stuff, false stuff. But anyway, now when I got here, I didn't have a resentment with that principle, because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I honestly didn't. I didn't have a fear connected with that principle. I didn't even think that there was anything in my sexual inventory that principle had anything to do with it. But I had enough sense to realize that that principle made me harm people my entire life. So where does it go? Harms to others. And that was a slap in my face when I realized that I just wasn't enough of a real man doing those things. And I thought that that's what's making me a man. That's not nowhere near the truth. So that principle there, boy, that set me free in a lot of ways in my life. So there's two types of principles. And I really want you guys to take time and think about these things when you're inventorying, because they're so important. There's two types of principles, generic and personal. What do I mean by that? A generic principle is one that's common for a lot of people. So in other words, let me just think. Men don't cry. I don't know if that's a belief of yours, but you've probably heard that before. Men ain't supposed to cry, right? or women are supposed to stay home and take care of the house. Okay, that's, I don't know if that's a belief of yours, but that's something that's common growing up my age. So those are generic because they go for many different people. A personal principle is one I just shared with you. Maybe other people have that same principle, but it's not a generic that, you know, so many people have it. It's very personal to you. So you have to spend time thinking about what were your morals, values, and beliefs growing up. The ones that warped you, the ones that made you hurt other people, the ones that got you in sexual difficult situations, the ones that caused you a lot of fear, the ones that got you mad all the time. What principles, what morals, values, and beliefs did you have? And it's so worth it to take some time and think about those things and put them down on your inventory sheet. They go in column 1. Column 1. Does anybody got any questions about that? Nobody?
No, I think it's huge though, on this, and I think that there is questions. I mean, because it's taken me a long time to really,
Think about principles?
yeah, to know my,
But since last year when we did this, have you thought of any? No.
you know, but I don't know if I'm giving them up, but it's still really hard to,
Well,
but I have work.
yeah. Well, the idea is to get them on your fourth step. Yeah, you're not giving anything up in your fourth step. And that's another misconception. We're not letting go of anything. The fourth step is just kind of like going in your house and going through your closet and your bureaus and taking all the stuff out and throwing it on the floor and just taking a look at what I got. And if you're anything like me, you're gonna go, this shirt is probably as older than I've been sober. Over 30 years old. This is an Italian double knit with leather. And there was many times I couldn't fit this over the years. I can fit it again. But if you're like me, you're gonna go through your stuff. You're gonna, oh no, I like that shirt. I can't let that go. Don't fit you no more. Probably never fit you again. I can't let that go. Right? That's what the fourth step is looking at this stuff. And then the fifth step and the sixth and seventh is learning how to get rid of that shit. So we're not really giving nothing up we're doing an inventory in the fourth step. We're looking at what's the unsaleable and damaged goods that Bill talks about in his example. What damaged and unsaleable goods do you have? And when we talk about you personally, we're talking about your thinking, your flawed thinking. Not your good thinking, your flawed thinking. Okay. So what in your flawed thinking you got to get rid of? I've got people that know me in my house for years, and now in my restaurant, I've got this giant thing hanging on the wall. It's Mariah Carey's pants, and they're signed by Mariah Carey. And I got them in a nice display. It's huge, right? My wife finally got it out of the house and put it in the restaurant. So these pants, I got them in a celebrity auction years and years ago, and she signed them and I had them framed and put in there, right? The pants, the waist are like 29. She ain't never going to fit those again. But so every time I look at that, I think, oh, there's so many things that I got in my closet and my dresser. There's no way I'm good. This shirt, okay, I got back into it after a couple of years it didn't fit. But I got some pants that, you know, they ain't never, ever going to fit me no more. I need to get rid of that shit. So exactly the same thing with my thinking. Exactly the same thing with my thinking. What kind of thinking do you have that's flawed? What kind of thinking do you have that's flawed? And the only way you're really going to notice is by inventory. Getting it all down on paper. You can't do it in your head. You can't do it in your head because you got lots of resentments and lots of fears and lots of things going on.
There are prompt sheets that have been made by different people, like fear prompt sheets.
Yeah, we have them. He's going to give them to you next week. No, but you can use the same ones for resentment. He's got a resentment one and he's got a fear one, and you can use those for principles too.
But like the examples you gave, like
real men don't cry and like those are things like that are on
No,
there. It would be neat to have one.
no, there's nothing on those sheets about the principles. Those are for you to explore and put in your own inventory sheet.
It's like your next police thing, that you don't even know really where.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's gonna come up when you start thinking about it. Jay, you want to pass the bitch?
I'll get it, Jerry.
You had mentioned, about the June.
Hey, guys, hold on.
By the gallery. You had mentioned about the June 27th workshop. It was gonna be on YouTube. Is this right now, on YouTube or is the place you can capture?
This right now is on Zoom, and tomorrow it'll be on YouTube.
How do we find it on?
You go to Danny Falcone, 2021.
Okay.
And this is week 15, and you can go, is starting from week 1. If you go to 2021, you'll find this one here. If you just put Danny Falcone Big Books, you'll pick up some old years.
How many week courses is it?
Well, we're on 15 now, probably around 30,
35.
maybe.
We're slow.
Right.
Shoot hot.
Well, we figured we'd extend it because Jerry missed a few weeks, so we'll make
You
it.
got a funny way about pointing those little things out.
Yeah.
Watched last week.
I like his phone with the best. Oh, I'm gonna be-
Yeah.
Is that a commit?
So, but yeah, you could pick up last year's and the year before on YouTube, but if you put 2021, you'll just get this year.
Danny Falcone, 2000.
Yeah, FALCONE
2020.
2021. Danny Falcone 2021. And this will be on, it takes a couple hours to download it, so tomorrow morning it'll be all downloaded and I'll load it up.
And you be here every Wednesday night.
6:45 for an hour. Promptly,
You
without regret. All right, so we got lots and lots of stuff to talk about yet. We got 5 minutes left. Let's do some questions and answers. Who's got questions? Anybody?
I just want to say that, the gentleman here, and I understand where you're coming from, because, I am right there with you, brother. I understand that. And I always use this analogy, the first time that I got introduced to a substance and a spoon and I tried to make my own concoction, I didn't do very good at it. But I practiced real hard. I became real good at it,
Yeah.
so our behavior is first I learned it, then I practiced it, and then I became it.
Yeah.
And I know these things, these affirmative things you're talking about is like cognitive thought process. We need to retrain our brain with this positive influence of,
Yeah.
I sing the third step prayer every morning with friends, with doing that affirmations, the daily affirmations, and retraining. It's done a lot of damage, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
You have to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
This genius thing that we created.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna do with 6 and 7. We're gonna stop doing what we want to do, and we're gonna make ourselves do what we don't want to do. We're gonna practice the opposite of our defects, and that's how we change. So I always tell you, don't take a little kid and every day since he's 3, 4 years old, he practice basketball, and when he's 20 years old, he doesn't become a hockey player. We are what we do. And so we have to relearn things like you just said and reprogram our stuff. And that's exactly what we're doing right here in this step. We're taking a look at how I've thought, acted, and reacted my whole life in given situations. That's what the fourth step is. How have I thought, acted, and reacted to all kinds of given situations my whole life? Because what was our will in our life? It was our thoughts and our actions, wasn't it? And so if that's what it was in the third step, then we're going to carry on in the fourth step. We're going to take a look at how we've thought, acted, and reacted. So anybody got a question? Anybody else got a question? Yes.
So resentment, that's the number one offender. Most of what behind that, a threat, something.
Yeah, a threat to one of your basic instincts.
So threat is generally behind the resentment.
Well, yeah, real or fancy, the book says. Real or fancy, it doesn't have to be real. you know, if I think you wronged me, it doesn't matter if you wronged me or not. You wronged me, right? Real or fancy. And what we didn't talk about here is that same paragraph, what we just finished off on, where it says, our ambitions, right? It talks about even our ambitions. So if I want to be friends with Doug and you interfere with that, I'm going to be mad. If I am friends with Doug and you interfere, I'm going to be mad. So it doesn't matter if it's something that is real or if it's an ambition of it. If that's what my ambition is and you interfere, I'm going to be mad. So resentment comes from a threat to any basic instinct. That in this case, it's a social instinct.
And maybe the threat sometimes, I mean, like, I could be playing golf with a kid. And I'm trying to cheat. It's not, threat sounds like being a violent partner. I was, you know, maybe she made me feel stupid because she was always being. So threat sounds like, you know, it could be just make somebody making you feel less than me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. When we're done with this fourth step, I guarantee you, you will be able to see the exact nature of your wrongs. You're going to see exactly where your anger comes from, pinpointed. And I've done this with thousands of people over the years, and any one of them will tell you it's spot on, spot on.
So are we starting the writing now this week or waiting for those papers?
No, we're not starting the writing yet. We're not going to start the writing for 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh,
Okay, but we're gonna build up to what we're doing, and you can take your notes, and then when you write, you know exactly what you're doing.
Would you be giving advice about like, because once people I'm working with start writing, it's very heavy to look at a lot of that stuff. It's like all right there and they get depressed or really down. And so do you have advice about like, once you get started, get it done quickly, or how to manage your feelings when you're getting all that shit out on paper before you do step 5?
Can I answer that for you?
Go
Have
ahead.
you ever known an alcoholic not to give advice?
Well, that's a very true statement. And you gotta do it
No,
all.
go ahead.
The process you have to understand, and one of the things you want to pass on to the people you're working with, is that this whole thing is a healing process. Some nasty shit comes out. I shared with you something that I'm not proud of. I shared with you my personal principle. I'm not proud of that today. But that's my truth. That's who I was when I crawled in these rooms. And so the healing process is not pleasant. It's not pleasant because we don't really want to, in the 11th step, we'll talk more about this, but we don't really want to wake up. We want to stay asleep. We don't really want a cure because a cure is painful. So what we really want is just give me the magic $9.99 special and let me get on with it. So you have to share with people that this is a painful experience, and you could help them work through their pain. But it's pretty ugly, but that's just the beginning of the healing process. All right, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Really done?
We start on time, we finish on time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danny.
Thanks, guys. Tom.
Thank you, Danny.
Dan.
Danny, what's right on the board? I missed it.
The board says all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. And Galileo said that many years ago.
And
There it is again. All right.
so let's go.
You got your book?
I got my book.
I have a question for you. The lady I usually sit with, Deborah, couldn't make it tonight.
Uh-huh.
And she said she had asked you last
All
week.
truths are easy.
Bye, guys. I forgot to bring them. I'll bring them next
Get it
week.
next week.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question.
Hi, Michelle.
How are you?